I have filed this account with the Veth-Doran Penal Authority, Ossian Keth branch, under my own designation and seal. I do not expect it to change their assessment of the facility's rating. I am filing it because the rating is wrong, and I am the one who has to know that. The atmospheric vault is rated Class 44. That means it will hold any known semi-permeable or gaseous biological entity up to and including the HFY dispersal caste, the Orvane sublimation runners, and the upper spectrum mist forms catalogued in the Veth-Ossian survey records. 16 rotations without a breach. The rating was not a boast. It was a measured fact, verified by independent survey, countersigned by the sector authority, and filed under certification DW44-0091. I am the one who certified it. I want to say that first, because everything that follows comes back to it. The freight inspector arrived at Veth-Ossian Transit Annex on the 18th rotation of the current cycle, flagged on a Class C licensing infraction, Freight Amendment DW51C0017, alleged short filing on an atmospheric-grade transit permit for a cargo run through the Ossian-Vel corridor. Minor. The kind of thing that resolves in a half rotation with the correct documentation. My junior intake assessor, Keth Varal, logged him as a soft-tissue biological, non-combatant, Veth-Doran Freight Authority, no prior citations. Deathworld origin, Class 51 designation, noted in the intake record under biological classification. Keth Varal flagged it as a formality. Class 51 deathworlds are rough terrain, he noted. Elevated musculature and thermal tolerance. Standard processing protocols apply. I read that intake log 3 times after the fact. I have thought carefully about what Keth Varal could have known, and I do not fault him. The Class 51 biological survey is in the record. It says what it says. It does not say what it does not say. We placed the freight inspector. His name was Cade Oren. It is in the record, and I will not avoid it. In the atmospheric vault at the start of the 19th rotation for standard secure processing, while we resolve the documentation question, the vault runs a continuous atmospheric scrub cycle on a 14-minute loop, maintaining a controlled negative pressure gradient at -0.3 relative units. The gradient is the seal mechanism. It works by denying atmospheric sustenance to any entity that requires ambient atmospheric intake to maintain dispersed or semi-permeable form. The scrubber array cycles down for a 6-minute calibration window every 14 minutes, during which the gradient drops to neutral while the array resequences. The calibration window is not a weakness. It is a maintenance necessity built into the original housing by the Veth-Doran Atmospheric Systems Authority, and it has no operational relevance to any biological entity that requires continuous atmospheric sustenance, which is every entity in the Class 44 rating band. During the calibration window, those entities require the gradient to maintain form. Without it, they cannot pass through the seal membrane. They are, if anything, more contained during the window, not less. This is what I knew when I placed Cade Oren inside. I did not know that Class 51 Deathworld survey runners spend an average of 3 standard years running atmospheric transit corridors between gas strata layers on the survey surface. Layers where the ambient oxygen content drops to levels incompatible with standard biological function, and where survival requires the ability to suppress metabolic rate, lower core temperature, and reduce active oxygen draw to a fraction of standard baseline. I did not know this because the biological survey record for Class 51 does not list it under capabilities. It lists it under environmental adaptation notes, subsection 4, paragraph 11, as a secondary notation on respiratory flexibility, not under anything a containment intake assessor would read for a minor freight infraction. I know it now. What I can reconstruct from the vault's internal sensor log, which ran continuously and recorded everything, because the vault is rated Class 44, and I build systems that work, is as follows. Cade Oren entered the vault at the start of rotation 19, hour 0. For the first 4 hours and 12 minutes, he sat against the left wall, in the corner where the sensor resolution is lowest, which I believe was not coincidental. The sensor log shows him stationary, respiration nominal, core temperature nominal, no anomalous readings. I reviewed it twice looking for signs of distress. There are none. He sat in the corner of a sealed atmospheric vault and produced, to all sensor readings, the biological profile of a person quietly waiting. At hour 4, 12 minutes, and approximately 30 seconds, His respiration rate dropped below the sensor's alert threshold for the first time. The alert threshold is calibrated for Ossian Keth biological baseline, not Class 51. The log did not flag it. I found it in retrospect, running the raw feed against a Class 51 biological parameter set I pulled from the Survey Authority database after the fact. His core temperature followed 11 minutes later. Oxygen draw, measured as atmospheric displacement in the vault, dropped to levels the sensor array classified as ambient noise. He had read the scrubber cycle. I do not know how long it took him to understand the 14-minute loop. I do not know if the Veth-Doran atmospheric systems housing has a standard maintenance plate with the calibration specifications printed on it, and if so, how long it took him to read it at whatever range he could manage from the corner of the vault. I have put in a request for the housing specifications. They have not been returned yet. I expect they will confirm what I already know. At hour 11, rotation 19, during a scheduled calibration window, the standard 6-minute drop to neutral gradient, the 37th such window since his intake, the vault's atmospheric displacement sensor recorded a movement event at the maintenance corridor interface. The event lasted 4 minutes and 40 seconds. It was logged as a sensor calibration artifact by the array's onboard management system because the gradient was at neutral and the array was in resequence, and the management system is designed to discard movement events during resequence as hardware noise. The vault was empty when we opened it at the start of rotation 20. On my desk, filed under the Ossian Keth intake queue via the Veth-Doran Freight Amendment routing system, was Form DW51-0001, the first entry on record for that designation. It was a correction to Freight Amendment DW51C0017, the original infraction. The short filing had been a clerical error on the part of the Keth Ossian Intake Registry. The correct documentation had been in the system since the filing date. The amendment resolved the Class C citation in full. The timestamp on Form DW51-0001 was 4 hours and 6 minutes before I opened the vault. He had filed the paperwork from inside. I do not know how. The vault has no external data interface. The maintenance corridor connects to a Veth-Doran freight relay substation, and those substations run on the same atmospheric systems housing network. If that network shares a data relay architecture with the Freight Amendment routing system, which I have also submitted a technical inquiry to confirm, then the maintenance housing's standard uplink access would have given him a path. Veth-Doran Atmospheric Systems is a subsidiary of Veth-Doran Freight Systems. I looked that up this morning. It is in the public commercial registry. It has been there for 93 rotations. The remarks column on Form DW51-0001 is a free text field. Most inspectors leave it blank. Cade Oren did not leave it blank. He wrote one line. I have read it several times. I will not reproduce it in full here. It is in the file. What I will say is that it contained the subclause number of the relevant provision in the Ossian Keth Transit Code under which his citation was originally issued, the subclause number of the provision under which it was dissolved, and the precise transit code section governing the maximum permissible detention period for a non-combatant freight inspector holding a valid amended permit. The maximum permissible detention period is 11 hours. He had been in the vault for 11 hours. I have submitted a facility review request under my own certification number. I have noted in the review that the atmospheric vault's Class 44 rating is accurate for all entities within the survey record scope, and that the gap in coverage is a gap in the survey record, not in the vault's engineering. I have noted the calibration window duration and the management system's artifact discard protocol and the data relay architecture question. I have noted all of it. The review board will decide what it decides. I have been thinking about the subclause numbers. He wrote them in order, correctly, in a free text remarks field, from inside a sealed vault, in the dark, at the end of 11 hours. Not from memory of a form he had in front of him, from memory of the code itself. I do not know how long he has been reading transit codes. I do not know what else he has memorized. I do not know if he is still in the Ossian Keth corridor or if he has moved on. The freight amendment resolved without complication. The remarks column does not go very far.